I find his lack of balance disturbing.
It's all that data, bro. With SLT mega deals, he's got double data for the next 2 months.
Making headlines on First at 9. Another chapter. Ranil Wickremesinghe pledges to begin development from where it stopped after taking office as Prime Minister for a 5th time. By the book, the President highlights that the new appointment of a Premier was done in line with democracy. Alarm bells. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa cautions that certain media outlets are in the new government's crosshairs. Demonstration of maturity. India welcomes the resolution of the political situation in Sri Lanka. Global accolade. Sri Lanka's Lushan Pushparaj wins the 10th World Bodybuilding and Physique Sports Championship.
බයික් එකක් ගත්තොත් ෆෝන් එකක්. ඔව් තෝරාගත් යමහා බයික් මාදිලි සඳහා රුපියල් 40000ක් දක්වා වටිනා ස්මාර්ට් ෆෝන් එකක් නොමිලේ. ඉක්මන් කරන්න නොවැම්බර් 30 දක්වා පමණයි. කොන්දේසි සහිතයි. අමතන්න 0117 699 AMW ඉතින් පමණයි.
A very good evening and welcome to First at 9, another Derana 24/7 Sri Lanka's news channel. I am Katrina Chang. On to top story tonight. Leader of the United National Party, Ranil Wickremesinghe, took oath as the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka before President Maithripala Sirisena today. This is Premier Wickremesinghe's 5th term in office, which puts at the top of the list of Prime Ministers to have held the office of the most number of times. The new Premier's appointment comes following the resignation of former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa yesterday after a 50-day stint.
Leader of UNP Ranil Wickremesinghe arrived at the Presidential Secretariat this morning, following which President Maithripala Sirisena arrived. After their arrival, Ranil Wickremesinghe was sworn in as the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka before President Maithripala Sirisena.
ශ්‍රී ලංකා ජනරජයට පක්ෂපාත වන බවටද මගේ උපරිම ශක්ති ප්‍රමාණයෙන් ශ්‍රී ලංකා ප්‍රජාතාන්ත්‍රික සමාජවාදී ජනරජයේ ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාව ආරක්ෂා කොට අනුගමනය කරන බවට ගෞරව බහුමානයේ යුක්තව ප්‍රකාශ කොට ප්‍රතිඥා දෙමි.
Today's swearing-in marked Wickremesinghe's 5th occasion of taking oath as the Prime Minister, making him the Premier to have held the office the most number of times. In the turn of events leading up to the current political situation on the 26th of October, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa took oath as Sri Lanka's Prime Minister before President Maithripala Sirisena, catching almost all by surprise. The development came following the decision taken by the United People's Freedom Alliance to withdraw from the national government during a Central Committee meeting. Following the appointment of the new Prime Minister and the Cabinet, the President issued a Gazette notification dissolving the Parliament on the 9th of November. The decision, however, was challenged at the Supreme Court, with 13 fundamental rights petitions being filed against the President's move. Delivering its verdict, the Supreme Court unanimously ruled that the President's dissolution of Parliament was not consistent with the Constitution. There was another petition filed against former President Mahinda Rajapaksa holding the office of Prime Minister as well as his cabinet at the Court of Appeal. The court delivered an interim order temporarily suspending Premier Rajapaksa and his cabinet from functioning. On the 14th of this month, a day after the historic ruling on the dissolution of Parliament, a 3-member judge bench of the Supreme Court gave a ruling against lifting the interim order which suspended Mahinda Rajapaksa and his cabinet from functioning. In such a backdrop, following 50 days in office, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa stepped down from the premiership yesterday. Supporters of the United National Party were seen gathered in front of the Presidential Secretariat, where they expressed their happiness over the reappointment of Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister. A special function was organised at the Temple Trees to welcome Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe after he was sworn in.
දැන් I will now assume duties of the Premiership. I will appoint the Cabinet of Ministers. The development we began came to an unfortunate standstill in these few weeks. This country started moving backwards. We should firstly bring the country back to normalcy and then begin the development from where it stopped. I would like to say that I will give our people a better standard of living both economically and socially. We are proud of the Parliament and the judiciary as they performed their duties lawfully. I thank everyone who stood up for democracy via social media platforms, and we will move forward.
In the meantime, Saman Ekanayake was appointed as the Secretary to the Prime Minister today. The appointment was made by President Maithripala Sirisena with immediate effect.
After taking oath as the Prime Minister of this country, Ranil Wickremesinghe made a special statement addressing the nation today.
ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ අගමැතිවරයා ලෙස යලිත් ඔබ ඇමතීමට ලැබීම
I'm glad to address you again as the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. We passed the 19th Amendment with the objective of further safeguarding rights of the public. The Prime Minister of the country should command the confidence of Parliament. A Prime Minister cannot take the country forward without the support of the majority. The Prime Minister and his Cabinet should resign when a no-confidence motion is passed in Parliament against the Premier. According to the Constitution, the power to dissolve Parliament before 4.5 years of a general election has not been vested with anyone. It can only be done through a vote in Parliament with a two-thirds majority. The mistake of violating the provisions of the Constitution cannot be corrected through an election. The Supreme Court verdict mentions that such an illegal election cannot be allowed. My stance today is what it was yesterday. Our struggle is to uphold democracy and justice, to safeguard the Constitution and for rule of law.
මම කිව්වා මම අද කියන්නේත් ඒ දෙයමයි හෙට කියන්නේත් ඒ දෙයමයි.
President Maithripala Sirisena moved to remind the public that he gave the nod to appoint Arjuna Mahendran to the position of Central Bank Governor under protest upon the insistence of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Addressing members of United National Front following the swearing-in ceremony of Ranil Wickremesinghe as the Prime Minister at the Presidential Secretariat this morning, the President added that the appointment of the UMP leader to the Premiership was done honouring parliamentary traditions and democracy.
Investigations in the two incidents reported in 2015 with regards to the bond scam were completely tainted. This destroyed the people's faith and hope. The scam amounted to over 17 billion rupees. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe knows very well that I was against the appointment of Arjuna Mahendran as CBSL governor because of this issue. But within 1 week of my appointment, I gave Arjuna Mahendran the position upon the insistence of Ranil Wickremesinghe out of courtesy, and I did not want to conflict with him. Through Arjuna Mahendran's actions, the country was put in peril. I was so courteous to Ranil Wickremesinghe, I did not even question him when he abused his powers and at times acted as the president. I advised him not to arrest the clergy for various reasons. Now we have lost their support. I have continuously told him not to jail war heroes, but he did not listen. This Gazette notification was issued following advice by various experts with good intentions. It was not my motive to act against the Constitution. If anyone wants to bring an abolishment motion, fundamental rights petition, or even punish me, let them do it. But this will be written in history. If no one writes what happened, I will. Recently, I told you that I will write a book about how I rule this country with Ranil Wickremesinghe. I am continuing to write this book, and it will be released by the end of February next year. I will reveal everything. One can ask me about my statement where I said even if all 225 MPs call for it, I still won't give the premiership to Ranil Wickremesinghe. They may ridicule me in the coming days, but this is my stance. You may all think that I will attempt to garner the support of 217 MPs and obtain a majority in Parliament. But let me tell you that nowhere in the Constitution does it say that the President can be ordered by anyone as to who he should appoint as Prime Minister, not even the Supreme Court. I, however, have given the premiership to Ranil Wickremesinghe while honouring parliamentary traditions and democracy.
Meanwhile, views on the recent political developments from crossovers to speculations on TNA's motives were expressed at various events today as well.
There are rumours that a group of Sri Lanka Freedom Party members are planning to leave the party. I believe, however, that there will be many who will stick with the president and the SLFP. There are many who have individually expressed their support to Mahinda Rajapaksa and our party, saying that they're prepared to be seated in the opposition with us. We are in a dangerous situation because, for the first time in the country's history, it is the Tamil National Alliance who is pumping oxygen into the government. A passing of an actual bill tabled in Parliament will now be in the hands of the TNA. I wish to reiterate that no politician in this country will allow terrorism to raise its head. We understand how the past leaders of this country fought against terrorism to end this war. The United National Party, together with the United National Front, consists of 103 parliamentarians. We will do our very best to bring more people from the other side to the UNF.
Taking to Twitter, UPF MP Nama Rajapaksa congratulated Ranil Wickremesinghe on his appointment to the premiership, stating, quote, "Politics aside, I would like to congratulate Ranil Wickremesinghe being appointed as the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. I hope at least now he will work towards ensuring the sovereignty of this country and more so address issues of our people more than Western interests," unquote. Meanwhile, UMP MP Mangala Samaraveera stated, quote, "Mahinda Rajapaksa is resorting to extreme nationalism in the face of serial defeats in trying to topple a legal and a legitimate government. Your politics of hate and racism has no place in Sri Lanka anymore," unquote. Meanwhile, India welcomes the resolution of the political situation in Sri Lanka. Issuing a communique today, spokesperson of India's Ministry of External Affairs, Ravish Kumar, welcomed the latest political manifestations in Sri Lanka, saying that it is a demonstration of maturity by all political forces.
In response to queries regarding the recent political development in Sri Lanka, spokesperson of India's Ministry of External Affairs Ravish Kumar stated in a communique that as a close neighbour and true friend, India welcomes the resolution of the political situation in Sri Lanka. It further noted that this is a reflection of the maturity demonstrated by all political forces and also of the resilience of Sri Lankan democracy and its institutions. Ravish Kumar highlighted that India remains committed to taking forward its people-oriented development projects in Sri Lanka and is confident that India-Sri Lanka relations will continue to move on an upward trajectory. Meanwhile, taking to Twitter, former President of Maldives Mohammad Nasheed congratulated Ranil Wickremesinghe on his appointment and said, quote, "We always knew Sri Lanka would uphold her democratic credentials and show emerging democracies how the rule of law prevails. The country's military, by remaining in the barracks, has shown integrity," unquote.
Meanwhile, members and supporters of the United National Party were seen celebrating the reinstatement of Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister in several areas today.
Meanwhile, a construction of the area of Kamburupitiya in Matara was prematurely declared open by a UNP provincial councillor to mark the reappointment of their leader Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister. The bridge, which was set to be unveiled in January, was built with funds allocated by UPFA parliamentarian Lakshman Yapa Abewardhana.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa warns that the new UMP-led government has already made plans to suppress the media. Addressing a gathering at his residence in Tangor today, the former president also reminded that media has a responsibility to save the country from separatism.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa arrived at his residence Carlton House in Tangol this morning after stepping down from the premiership yesterday. Later, members of the public gathered at his residence were allowed to meet him, following which the former president addressed them.
The country was stricken with the burden of debt. They imposed heavy taxes, and had we not come into power, Sri Lanka would have met the same fate as France. Plans are made to give 35,000 acres for a foreign army camp near the Trincomalee harbour. They have also made plans to separate the country via an 8-lane road from Vaunia to Mannar. The president gave us a responsibility in such a situation. We thought of what we can do and attended to several matters soon. We received the stay order from the court when we were thinking about more relief for the general public. We decided to give power back, understanding the consequences of continuing this power struggle. Ranil Wickremesinghe took oath as the Prime Minister. We wish him all the best, but at the same time, we have to safeguard the country from him. We remind you that we will topple this government as well. The new government is getting ready to suppress the media. They have already appointed some ministers to monitor several selected newspapers. They have also discussed how television channels such as Hiru and Derana reported the recent incidents and how to suppress those channels through the introduction of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. I would like to remind you, we politicians as well as the media have a responsibility to prevent the country from being divided.
UMP parliamentarian Iran Vikramaratne is of the view that the position of opposition leader should be given to Mahinda Rajapaksa, provided it is constitutional and he has the lion's share of the opposition, while insisting that those who had a hand in what he called the conspiracy do not have a place in the cabinet. MP Vikramaratne said the new cabinet will be sworn in within 48 hours.
The cabinet should not exceed 30 portfolios. Vehicles and foreign tours should be reduced. We invite all to support the government without expecting any privileges in return. This cabinet does not have any acceptance of those who jumped ship for money and positions. We cannot label someone wrong just because of an accusation. We have to be disciplined. People with conflict of interest are not welcomed in the cabinet along with those who had a hand in this conspiracy. The cabinet will be sworn in within 48 hours. If the parliament does not pass monetary allocations after the 1st of January, it will be problematic to health and education sectors. We can pass a vote of account in parliament and then we would present a budget in the first week of January and we will pass it in February. The person who commands the majority out of the parties in the opposition should become the leader of the opposition. If Mahinda Rajapaksa has the bigger opposition and if it is constitutional, then it should be given to him. Today is a very successful day and I'm glad the harmony between the leadership duo is growing. He said that we should work together. There are neither permanent friends nor enemies in politics. A group of them will cross over. Yes, he is the leader who has been in the chair for 25 years. But didn't he set a world record by becoming the Prime Minister for the 5th time? Isn't it good enough?
Let's have a look at some other stories making news across Sri Lanka.
The Police Narcotics Bureau arrested a Bangladeshi woman with 32 kilograms of heroin valued at around 388 million rupees. Police media spokesperson SP Ruwan Gunasekara said that the suspect was arrested during a raid conducted in the area of Dehiwala yesterday. At the time of the arrest, the suspect had been in possession of 1 kilo of heroin, and during interrogations, the police found another 31 kilograms of heroin at a house rented out by the suspect in Ratmalana. The 23-year-old Bangladeshi woman was produced before the Mount Lavinia Magistrates Court this evening. The Police Narcotics Bureau is conducting further investigations regarding the incident. 4 employees of the Ceylon Electricity Board of Matale were ordered to be kept in remand custody until the 24th of this month for attacking a doctor and several employees of the Dambulla Base Hospital. The suspect has admitted a patient to the hospital last night and has attacked the doctor and the hospital staff when the doctor pronounced the patient dead. A 10-year-old boy drowned in a swimming pool at Gonapala in Horana and died following admission to the Vaithara hospital yesterday. According to the police sources, the boy was participating in a family function at a hotel.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to the news. Director of Corporate Affairs of the Securities Exchange Commission, Dr. Harshini Surya Peruma, heralds that for the first time in Sri Lanka's capital market history, the SEC will be introducing a multi-currency board which allows overseas entities to list their companies in Sri Lanka as a secondary listing. Surya Peruma made the announcement at an event held in Colombo recently.
Prior to July 2018, if your company is carrying an audit qualification in your financials, prior to July 2018, the company could continue without any issue as far as the capital market is concerned. So despite the fact that the independent auditor who has looked into the financials is saying that your financials are not giving a true and fair view, the company is allowed to continue business as usual as far as the capital market is concerned. However, subsequent to 1st July 2018 rule changes, if the company is not in compliance with the requirement to have an unmodified audit qualifications, if the company violated the rule and ended up with having a modified audit qualification or a qualified audit opinion, then the number of days the company's shares are to be allowed, securities are allowed to be traded freely is now restricted. The Colombo Stock Exchange will transfer the company into a new board. Previously it was the default board, but it is now reclassified or renamed as the watch list of the Colombo Stock Exchange, indicating it is a kind of cautionary note to the investors. Be careful. Why? Because the investors might acquire the shares of these companies or securities of these companies, and within few months, as provided in rules, CSC themselves will suspend the trading of these securities as well. There are some important changes to the market structure as well. All this time, or prior to July 2018, we had main board companies and Dirisavi board companies. However, Sri Lanka is evolving as a destination as well in terms of capital market related activities. So, in order to prepare ourselves for the future plans that the capital market regulator is having and the Colombo Stock Exchange together, now the market is divided into two main areas. One is called the main segment, where the main board companies and Dirisavi board companies are attached to. And there's an alternate market segment for new products that are coming into the markets, various new initiatives to accommodate various new initiatives. For example, Empower Board that was introduced in the month of July to list SME companies, small and medium companies. SEC is introducing a multi-currency board which allows overseas companies to list their company in Sri Lanka as a secondary listing for the first time in Sri Lankan capital market history.
Banking watchdogs of the European Union warns that although the main banks have stepped up preparations for a potential no-deal Brexit, UK-based payment firms used by European Union customers are not ready. The European Banking Authority said that since it rang the alarm in June over lenders' inadequate planning for a situation where the UK crashed out of the bloc with no deal, contingency plans have improved among bigger banks. It is still concerned about the preparations of payment and e-money institutions and warned that some may need to plan to relocate their businesses. Britain's parliament is deadlocked over a divorce settlement that Prime Minister Theresa May has negotiated with the EU before the country's planned departure from the EU next March. The impasse has increased the possibility of Britain crashing out of the bloc with no transition arrangement. The EU will ramp up contingency plans next week to avoid disruptions to financial derivatives market in particular. Negotiations in Poland have finally secured agreement on a range of measures that will make the Paris Climate Pact operational in 2020. Last-minute rows over carbon markets threatened to derail the two-week summit and delayed it by a day. Delegates believe the new rules will ensure that countries keep their promises to cut carbon. The Katowice agreement aims to deliver the Paris goals of limiting global temperatures rises to well below 2 degrees Celsius.
This deal hangs in fragile balance. We will all have to give in order to gain. We will all have to be courageous to look into the future and make yet another step for the sake of humanity. It is your work. It is your achievement. It is something the world has been waiting for.
Nearly 200 countries overcame political division yesterday to agree on rules for implementing a landmark global climate deal. But critics say it is not ambitious enough to prevent the dangerous effects of global warming. After 2 weeks of talks in the Polish city of Katowice, nations finally reached consensus on a more detailed framework for the 2015 Paris Agreement, which aims to limit a rise in average world temperatures to well below 2 degrees Celsius, which is about 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, above pre-industrial levels. The summit accord reached by 196 states outlines plans for a common rulebook for all countries, regulations that will govern the nuts and bolts of how countries cut carbon, provide finance to poorer nations, and ensure that everyone is doing what they say they are doing. The idea of being legally liable for causing climate change has long been rejected by richer nations who fear huge bills well into the future. President of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, yesterday raised his fist and hauled one of the church bells taken as war trophies by US soldiers in 1901 as they were returned to their hometown. The bells of Baliniga, which were looted by US colonial troops in 1901 during their massacre of thousands of Filipinos to avenge an ambush that killed 48 of their comrades more than a century ago, landed in a military cargo plane at a Manila airbase on Tuesday, where Philippine defense ministers received the war booty from the US embassy. Their return follows years of lobbying by former presidents, priests and historians, and challenges from Wyoming veterans and lawmakers opposed to dismantling a war memorial, resulting in legislation that barred their removal. The Battle of Baliniga, that took place towards the end of the 1899 to 1902 Philippine-American War, marked one of the darkest chapters of US colonialism. And with that, let's cross over to a short commercial break. Stay tuned.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
Sri Lankan bodybuilder Lushan Pusparaj won the 10th World Bodybuilding and Physique Sports Championships held in Thailand today. The World Championships, which is being held in Chiang Mai, began on the 11th and concludes tomorrow. Pushparaj won gold at the 51st Asian Bodybuilding and Physique Sports Championship held in South Korea last year. He also represented Sri Lanka at the Mr. and Miss Atlas and Fitness Expo at the Arlington Convention Center in USA, where he finished 4th. Moving on to our weather forecast for tomorrow, the cyclonic storm Pethai, hovering over southwest Bay of Bengal, is likely to move northwestwards and intensify further into a severe cyclonic storm during the next 24 hours while moving away from the island. The influence of this system is expected to gradually decrease from tomorrow. Mainly fair weather can be expected, with fairly milder weather also expected in some parts of the country. And that is all from First at 9 for tonight. But before we go, we'd like to offer you a peek into Christmas decorations at the White House, which was unveiled last month. According to the White House, this year's Christmas theme is called American Treasures, which aims to honor the unique heritage of America. We hope you enjoy these visuals and have a pleasant evening.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.